So I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's March 1st, 7:04 p.m. This is the meeting of the Wakefield Commission on Disabilities. I want to remind everyone, as usual, this meeting is being recorded. The mission statement for the commission: our mission is to address the needs and concerns of our disabled residents and provide their full participation in the activities and services of Wakefield.
Marie,
Yes.
I do have a flag here.
Awesome. Okay. Then if we would like to pledge, we may begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all.
So I am looking here, and we have two individuals that looks like they are from the public, Dan Lieber, I'm sorry, and Fran. How are you?
Hello.
Dan, because we heard from you first, are you okay with speaking first?
I'm perfectly fine, unless if Fran has a pressing need to go, that's fine too.
It's fine.
Okay.
So respect is at the core of the various things that I try to do and the approaches that I try to take. And that's part of the reason for bringing forward an issue that I'm finding myself experiencing in town, where ultimately the CDI can hopefully help. And specifically, it is around town meeting. The last two town meetings, I've been specifically discriminated against because of a disability that I do have. I have a hearing disability. And so I read lips as a part of my coping mechanisms with that. And I'm also at increased risk for COVID exposure due to various health issues, that just being, a human being that is no longer in my 20s or 30s or anything close to that. So it's just the nature of things that at the last two town meetings, I really did want to attend. I have alerted the town for many years. I've been attending town meetings for about 25 years now. And for the last several town meetings, I've asked for accommodations, very specifically that all audio be made so that it's amplified in some sort of way, so that it's not exclusive, and that all speakers at all times use microphones. And when there have been issues with that, I've taken that directly to the moderator and asked him rather discreetly. I've almost always copied the town council attorney, town council Mullen, so that they're aware of the issue. This started years ago in the old Galvin. It continued into the new Galvin when we did it there. But the last two town meetings, as you're surely aware, both took place in the field house and outdoors. And there was a outright refusal to make accommodations where it was contrary to CDC guidelines and the health recommendations given to me by health professionals for me to attend anything indoors. And there was no accommodations for me to be able to read lips, because people are wearing masks when they're doing that, and there's no way for that to happen. And so I was not looking for anything extensive nor expensive as an accommodation. There are masks that are available that have clear face places. For anyone who wishes to speak, they could be given that mask. They can get it on sign, and if they wish to speak. Lots of different ways that could happen. There are ways that this was accomplished at the presidential inauguration, where they used a couple different lecterns, cleaned them in between. Lots of different accommodations. But at the last two town meetings, I literally could not go because of a disability. And they refused. And I was told they would not make accommodations. We have another town meeting coming up in May. And I expect this similar type of scenario to occur. It's not a matter of whether the town meeting is allowed. It is explicitly allowed under law. That's not the issue. The issue here is making sure that those who are similarly situated, and I know many, many people are similarly situated, where it's not safe, and whether that accommodation is due to a major health issue, whether it's due to a hidden disability such as that I have. Hearing disabilities are remarkably common, and to make it so that there is an accommodation made. There is nothing that precludes them from using technology in the meeting to say, oh, your accommodation is you have to sit outside either in sweltering heat or in freezing cold weather or in humid conditions with other people under a tent. That's not actually an acceptable accommodation in reality either, especially if you can't hear, you can't see what's going on. And if I can't read the lips or have people enunciate clearly, I honestly can't do much. To give an idea of how this was really impacted, Town Administrator Mayo gave an address at the last town meeting in November. I could only understand about 40% of it because of his mask. He spoke very quickly, and by speaking very clearly with mask, you really had no idea what the things that are mumbled, and it became very hard to understand what was going on. I'd specifically made that request. And so I'm asking for the Commission on Disabilities to help bring this to the attention of the moderator and town council, both legal and possibly the administrative town council as well, so that this issue does not recur again. I'm not looking to take legal action against the town. I'm going to reserve that right, obviously. I'm reserving all my rights to do so, but that's not my intent. My intent is to be able to have a town meeting that I can participate in as someone who has been a member and involved with our town for almost 20 years as both a town meeting member and serving on various boards and commissions, committees, et cetera. And to be able to not be able to do that is really it's really disconcerting. And I fully understand the pandemic, but that's not an excuse for excluding people for really any sort of legitimate reason. We're not going to have full vaccination. We're not going to be at a fully safe environment going into the May town meeting. I think that's a safe bet at this point. But to make accommodations that are reasonable, realistic, and there's enough experience at this point using technology that it can be managed. It's just a matter of what is the appetite and how does that need to be run. I'm willing to be a part of the solution. I understand technology. I've been working with technology for way too many decades now. And as I look at it's 2021, and it still amazes me that I've been working with technology since, well, before most people knew what a PC was. So, because they weren't out when I started. So it's one of those things that I'm happy to work with town to figure these pieces out, but they need a push from the outside because honestly, they're not taking action. And I like Bill Carroll. He's a nice guy. He's a very talented moderator. I think that he's very effective at it. But the refusal to do accommodations is just not in the spirit of what things are. The good news is we have the CDI to help with this and raise awareness. So that's the real reason why I'm here. Because I'm trying to address it administratively.
Well,
Okay, may I ask, can I ask Dan a couple questions?
sure, go ahead, Lorna. Before you do, let me state that Dan, we appreciate you coming here to express your concerns. When I communicated to you via email, I communicated to you that, we were aware of this after the last town meeting. You had spoken to Lois Benjamin and she had brought it forth to us here. And we have been in discussions about potential resolutions. We've engaged Bill Renault, but before I have him speak, I'll, let Lorna, make her comment.
Can I also, Lorna, I'm sorry, can that's not why I'm here, but can I also ask a couple questions and make a couple comments? Because that was my, that's what I did. I worked with deaf and hard of hearing people for 40 years.
Certainly, if there's anything, Fran, that I've missed, you can certainly, I just wanted to ask him a simple question as to whether he wears any assistive listening devices at this particular time. Are you a hearing aid wearer, Dan?
Good question. I do have hearing aids that are available, but the hearing aids are not suitable for speech.
If
That's a current situation.
if you had an FM system that was compatible to your hearing aids, would that be of help to you?
No.
Okay.
So it's a fair question, but the way that my particular disability is manifested, hearing aids are actually a poor solution for human speech because they
Amplify everything.
They amplify the wrong stuff.
Right. Some hearing aids had on them what they called a T switch, which if you were connected to an FM system, you would be wearing the receiver that would be off your T switch, and then the person would have a microphone to speak into it, and it would block the background noises so that you would just hear whoever the person was speaking. So that's why I was asking if you did have hearing aids, but if they're of no use to you, then for this particular thing, then obviously that wouldn't be helpful then. Fran, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
So my
Fran,
professional,
excuse me, could you just state your first and that last name, please? Thank
it's
you.
Fran Demiani, and I've been a few dozen year Wakefield.
I
And
think we lost you,
Fran, I
Fran.
think you don't look to be on mute, but we're not hearing you.
Have you been in touch with the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing about what your options are? Because there are a number of them.
For this particular issue, I have not, and the reason for it is that I've been able to make accommodations that have worked within the town. Simple amplification solves the problem in most cases. The ability to have amplification with the ability to see a speaker's lips is sufficient. So I don't actually require a lot of accommodation.
If you find that's not working and it's not the accommodation the town is willing to make, you can ask for an oral interpreter through the Commission for the Deaf, and the town would by law have to pay for that. But an oral interpreter would be close enough to you, or if you're doing it through Zoom, you would see the person's face, that they know how to speak so that you would be able to read their lips. So that's just something I thought of. And the other is the typists. I forgot what they call them, but
Transcribers.
the card interpreters.
Right.
So I just and I also am hard of hearing. So I thought of both of those as possibilities for you for accommodations.
Much appreciated. I would not be opposed to a transcriber. I'm not looking to incur costs for the town. And the town would have to hire someone to do a manual transcription. I fully understand that. They could even use the free transcription that's built into Zoom and equivalent technologies. That would be helpful, without being problematic too. I've actually used that on occasion. Mm-hmm. Facebook actually is quite good with if you put it on mute, it'll actually do a transcription. It tends to be pretty close, mm-hmm. as long as it's English. Not English, not so good. But so I appreciate it, but my goal is not to incur additional costs or problems, because as soon as we have interpreters, and if others need it, I'm fully supportive of it. But as soon as we introduce others, there become additional logistical pieces that are significant that affect others as well. And I'm not against that for others, but that's not necessary for the accommodation that I particularly have.
Okay.
So they're great suggestions, though.
So as I mentioned, we reached out to Bill Renaud, and Bill has spoken with the town. And Bill, do you want to explain to Dan what we're going to propose to see if this is going to work?
No, for sure. And Dan, I apologize for the difficulty you had the last couple of town meetings. You know, at least hear that from me first. And so, as you know, I'm the town engineer, but I'm also the disability coordinator for the town. So I've been asked to take that on in the last year or so. So I'm basically the staff support for the commission now. So I got that email forwarded to me, and I reached out to Carol, the chair, Ann Santos, chair of the town council, and Mullen and Mayo, and looked at potential options. So in the email, you had mentioned the clear masks, which was something that they wouldn't have a problem with, or even maybe going with no masks and making people have to stay further away from the speaker. And then they've also looked at an option where they could actually have a camera directed right at the speaker and a monitor that would be, so you'd be able to read the lips, have somebody set that would let you read the lips, and you'd have one monitor assigned for that specifically. So that's what had been talked about. But going forward here, I mean, we want to make sure that this makes sense for you, but then we also want to understand if there's anybody else that has a similar situation. So we may go with a different technology, all the stuff that we've talked about today. We're going to do a public outreach campaign to try to get any other requested accommodations in enough time for us to be able to manage that for the town meeting. So I'll be taking the lead with you, and I have your email from some other correspondence that we've had. So going forward with it, once we hear back from our messaging campaign, which we're trying to do within the next couple of weeks, we'll give a couple of weeks for that to kind of shake out if we hear anything back. And then, we'll discuss with you what we're looking to do and make sure that you're comfortable with it. But I'll be your point of contact going forward.
I appreciate that. The biggest component that I see is whether it's even safe for people to attend. People who may or may not have been fully vaccinated, depending upon where we are in the vaccination schedule. Because quite honestly, if I'm not vaccinated, there is no way that I'm going into a building or a tent with hundreds of other people. I'm not willing to take that risk for my family. And to be able to handle that particular element is significant, because that's a disability of just reality. And in that way, I would encourage the use of, whether it be Zoom, since that's a technology that the town is licensing, and or other technologies that are similar to it. And okay. Mr. Carroll has experience, as Darcy knows well from last week, where he got to conduct a most interesting meeting. He does have experience working with Zoom. I'm not saying that he's going to control everything by any means. The technology is not his forte. Moderation is. And so to work with others would allow for people to have the distance without having to be physically congregating together. But you still have the same time slots together, which is what's necessary for deliberation, voting, et cetera. So there are ways that it can be accommodated. And there's nothing that precludes the use of technology in such a meeting. So knowing that there are people, and accessibility is a huge issue, getting to the actual field house and field house area is a very big issue for a lot of people, because I know people don't have, there's no public transportation options to it. There are not any there's no walking paths to get there. At the moment, there's actually no handicap accessible methods of getting there from many, many parts of town. So that's a way that just to address it on a bigger scale.
Yeah, no, I'm hearing all this. This is all new to me. So, I mean, if you want to forward me an email that kind of lays out all your concerns, and I can see how we can try to address all of those. I mean, there's a lot in there. So, whether we can make, the location of the town meeting, I mean, it is accessible from the rear. You can, actually access the building. There is parking that's accessible, that's there. You're right, there is no public transportation, but that's not a mandate. I mean, my town, I live in Middleton, we don't have public transportation, and, we still have our town meeting. So, I mean, and I don't.
But the reason why I'm bringing that up is this
Yep.
is a change, a material change from the normal location of town meeting that is accessible by public transportation.
Sure. No, that's a point.
Because it's
I
no
mean,
longer,
there's-
it's no longer an essential part of town.
Right, and there's nothing that says that the town couldn't provide, transportation. That's
Right.
people do that too. So we can look into all of those issues. I mean, that's something I think that makes sense to me. But the point about using Zoom for town meeting, that may be a little bit more difficult, because I haven't heard of any municipalities that have done that. It's all still the way that the town approached it. I would say it was one of the more robust versions that I've heard so far, at least in what I do. So, most of them have been on fields, and if it rains, then they reschedule. And they're providing at least an indoor and an outdoor option. I mean, there are choices that people can make to make it more comfortable for them. They have the social distancing component to it. So from my perspective, at least, I think that a lot of those issues have been covered, but I'm happy to follow up with Bill and the rest of the group that I mentioned earlier about it and see what accommodations we can make.
Appreciate it.
Oh, Bill? Bill, are you still there? Because I can't see if you are.
I am, yeah.
Oh, okay. Going forward, I think it might be wise, especially because the town meeting is going to be moved probably back into the Galvin once we get through this pandemic. And maybe going forward, we should have the technology department from the Mass Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing come out and talk to you or talk to whoever's in charge of the Galvin to be able to look at what can be done in a long run for anybody who has a hearing loss that can be that they can access it through accommodations like FM systems or the loop, or they have all different kinds of technology now. So there's a whole department in the Mass Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing that usually come out and do these evaluations and make recommendations.
Great, that'd be perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
Hey, Darcy, you got that as an action item? Okay,
I do.
thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions or for Dan or Bill on this topic? Nope. If not, then we'll move on to Fran. How are you?
I'm good. How are you all?
Well, thank you.
So I initially was coming here because I needed help with an issue around the vaccines, but actually some really nice things have happened with this town around it. And I'd like to share some of what I went through. So if you know other people who, they use the term that the governor uses, homebound, which I hate, but people who don't have the same access to the vaccines. Like for myself, I can't go to places that are a half-hour drive away or any place that has steps and all of that. So I have a lifelong disability, physical disability from polio. So I started making phone calls after I heard the governor say that the towns will be providing the vaccines for people who are, quote, homebound. And I kind of got the runaround everywhere. And I thought, oh, this is not going to be fun. And the basic message I got was, well, yeah, the governor said that, but we don't know what that means, or when they're, or where they're getting vaccine, or how we're going to do it. So that was the basic message I got. So Lorna actually, I had written to a couple of people on the public health board commission in town, and Lorna suggested I contact Ruth Clay. So first I made a phone call and I got somebody who gave me the same runaround. And so I wrote to her, and she was wonderful. And she said, look, we don't know when we're getting it. We don't have any answers, but you are on the list. And then I asked if my spouse could be on the list because she also is my driver, takes care of me at times that I need it. So she was put on the list. Well, I just assumed, as I typically would, that I'll get a call in 6 months because nobody knew what they were doing. Last Friday, at 4:45, I got a phone call from someone saying, if you can get here in the next half hour, we have vaccine left over and we're calling people from the list. And I was just blown away that they actually had this list and they were calling people, and I did get there within the half hour and we did get our first shot. So I was just really proud of Wakefield for actually following through in such a really timely manner. And I saw other people who were wheelchair users or other types of disabilities that made it difficult for them to do the same kind of traveling that I am not able to do. And I just think if you know anybody, they don't have to be totally homebound, because I'm not. I can get out of my house, go out of my house. But if you're basically stuck at home and you have an illness or a disability, that's the reason for that. Please let them know to call the town public health and put their name on the list.
Yes, and so I will echo that. When this all started, that I don't know if any of you have seen, but on Friday mornings, Steve Mayo hosts a call with the Board of Health. And obviously the past month or so, the topic has been, the COVID and the vaccine. And when it was determined that Wakefield was going to start to offer the vaccines as part of the Mystic Valley Coalition. So there's 6 towns that work together: Melrose, Wakefield, Winchester, Stoneham, Medford, whatever, Malden. And, Steve was committed to getting everybody in town vaccinated, but he said obviously it was going to take an army of volunteers. And I had heard that. And I said to my husband, we need to volunteer. So I kept calling until I got someone at the Board of Health and said, how do I get my name on the list? She said, I'll give you a number to so-and-so. And so-and-so eventually called us, and we went to Melrose for the first clinic to volunteer. And I prepared my husband, who doesn't have a lot of patience. This is gonna probably be a nightmare, just be prepared. Well, it was not that way at all. It was incredibly organized. They must have vaccinated over 800 people that day. People were just so thankful and grateful. And I volunteered several times since then. The experience has been the same every time. Ruth Clay and that whole Board of Health in Wakefield and the folks in Melrose deserve a ton of credit. Unfortunately, the governor decided that effective today, there are going to be no more community clinics to give vaccines. So there'll probably be a clinic to give vaccine number 2 for the day that you went. And as it stands right now, we cannot host any more clinics. This is my understanding, and obviously everything's subject to change, but Wakefield could continue to host as a coalition, but they had to be considered a state site, and they would have to be willing to do this 5 days a week. And I mean, obviously there's no way that they have the manpower to do that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Did the governor give a reason for this?
Because he wants to do these mass sites like at Gillette and at Fenway and up in Danvers, because what he's saying is you people, my constituents are screaming at me that we're not rolling this out fast enough. I'm only getting a limited amount of vaccines when they come in. So I want to give them to the sites that are huge and that can do thousands of vaccines at a time versus, shelling it out to the individuals in cities and towns where then he can only give 100 or 200. My understanding, Wakefield was doing up to 1,500 when they were able to do it in Wakefield at the head of the lake. So my first recommendation, and this is what I've done, I got online to Governor Baker's email. I sent an email, told him I was a volunteer, how wonderful things worked, that folks don't want to go to Fenway or they don't want to drive a distance. Call us whatever, provincial, we don't want to do that. We want it to be close. I got you get your automated response. He got it. Like I said to my husband, my one email is not going to make a difference, but if thousands of people send him an email singing the same song, that's going to cause pause. And I know the state legislatures they're not in agreement with him. And I understand at least 50 have put a letter in writing to him about not being happy with that decision. So I guess stay tuned. We see what happens. But if you got one in Wakefield, number one in Wakefield, they will get the second dose to be able to give you number 2.
But I am also a disability activist, and I am ready to take the bull by the horn and do something. So I just got to figure out, posting stuff about the governor to social media is a good idea. Not very positive about him, about his decision. But also I think we need to get all the disability, the community groups and whoever involved in responding to this. Because it's not that some people don't, many people don't like driving to Gillette Stadium, but a lot of people can't go.
Right.
Like myself.
Right.
So I will figure out, and I will start doing something. And if anyone else wants to do it with
I know
me.
some of the disability communities are, I have a son with Down syndrome, so I belong to a listserv that's that's associated with that. And those folks are definitely advocating, they were just originally advocating for those individuals to be able to get vaccinated. I know if you belong to Beth Israel, my mom's in her 80s. I got an email a month and a half ago on her behalf telling me, she was eligible. Click on this link. And they have about 10 sites where they're vaccinating people. One of them right in Linfield at the old Boston Sports Club. So if you were and I assume Melrose Wakefield is doing the same thing. If you belong to their, medical group, they're calling people as you become eligible. But for every clinic that I volunteered at, there's always been extra vaccine at the end, and they have been doing a good job of, they're doing a better job of monitoring it and not defrosting so many so that there's so much left at the end of the night. But there have always been extras, and they've been, keeping a list like yourself and calling people in at the last minute to come down. So I'm happy to hear that you were successful in getting something.
Yeah, thanks.
Anybody else have a comment? Question?
Nice to hear the good stories.
It is. And you know what? And what I said to Governor Baker is, I think you've done a decent job given how this is all rolled out, but I don't agree with you in this particular instance, and here's why. So, we'll see. Let's keep our fingers crossed that he changes his decision and it comes back, because Wakefield has done a great job, and even if they can only do it a couple of times a week, it's something, right? It's something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for those people who can't travel a distance, it will be something.
Thanks.
So Dan and Fran, thank you very much for coming forward. And Dan, you and Bill will be in contact, and I'm sure that we'll be able to put something in place in town meeting that will help to accommodate your needs.
Thank you. Greatly appreciated, and hopefully we won't have to have any discussions about things like logos and other things there. I know Dr. Burns is just cringing at the thought of having to deal with that stuff. But I really do appreciate the time, and Bill, feel free to reach out and coordinate so we can make this as successful for myself and others who are similarly situated.
And be aware
Do you
that,
mind-
as Bill stated, we are going to advertise if people have other needs. So we'll do our best to do whatever we can to accommodate people so that they can attend town meeting.
Which is awesome.
And I just want to thank you all for your time and for listening.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Come visit anytime.
Okay.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from February 1st. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 1st.
And then
I'll second it.
Babe, thank you, Paula. Okay, those are approved. And Lois isn't on, so we can't get a financial report, but I suspect it hasn't changed much since the last time.
Probably not.
So because Maeve, did we, oh, you still
No,
did you have some time? It's already 7:41, is that?
Yeah, I actually was just about to say I have to jump off, but I will get you guys the notes from the Mass Office of Disability Conference. It's on Thursday. I'll get you guys those notes that night. And I'll
So
connect.
it's this coming Thursday. You haven't
Yes.
attended yet. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I misunderstood. All right,
and
great.
I'll connect with you at some point this week as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maeve. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank
Maeve.
you.
All right, Paul, are you up to talking about the website on your own?
Sure, I think so. We were able to incorporate Lois's suggestions into the website and put in some additional Wakefield sites. And it went to Jen McDonald, and she said she was going to be working on it and getting it on the town's website. I think our hope, what Maeve and I were talking a little bit about it, if the commission thinks it makes sense, is just to kind of continuously add to that, like every 6 months to add kind of another bunch. I think it's a little bit more time intensive than either Maeve or I thought it would be. But I think it's good information to have out there.
Okay, I can't, will Jen advise you when she's got all that information up there so we can take a look at it?
I can reach out to her. My thought was I'd give her a couple of weeks and then
Yep.
reach out.
Yeah, maybe by our next meeting, she
Yep.
may have something posted there.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to skip around a little bit just because Bill is on the phone and phone where you listen to me. You know what I meant.
On the phone.
Yeah. So, Bill, we had talked about the ADA transition plan. And you were on the meeting last month, but I mentioned that to everyone, and I didn't know if you wanted to give a little briefing on what that is. We've sort of brainstormed other, I know that at some point you're going to go out and you're going to request and do a survey from organizations that may be experiencing ADA issues within town. And so we've started to brainstorm who some of those organizations should be that you can reach out to. But do you want to just describe a little bit about that plan?
Yeah, so the town is required to develop a transition plan which identifies all barriers for essentially any user of any service in town. So everything we've been talking about today pretty much should be part of the plan. So that includes the town meeting, assistance with hearing. It can be the notifications that go out for every meeting that we've started to work on a little bit. It's the access to the website. Any component of it is really part of that transition plan. And what is required from the town is that they have at least have identified all barriers, whatever they may be, and then have a plan over some period of time to correct it. The big issue with municipalities ends up being, from a cost standpoint at least, ends up being access to buildings is one big one, and then access in the right of way. So sidewalks, curb ramps, all that type of stuff. That ends up being the big dollar stuff. So really they focus on that as one component of it, but then everything else has to still be involved. So to start at least the big ticket items, we're proposing to include within our capital budget a line item for somewhere between $125,000 to $150,000, which would be used for assessments of the buildings, all buildings within town, and then also all of our sidewalks and potential need for curb ramps in different locations. And as part of that, we'd also come up with a scheduling component to it to make sure that we're putting some dollars towards this every year. So at this point, the question was whether it would be a separate article at town meeting or if it would be included within Public Works capital budget. At this point, the capital planning committee did agree to include it within the budget, and we're working on what that number will be. So I'm thinking somewhere between 125 to 150, hoping to be closer to 150. And then that would give us a little bit of additional money for maybe eliminating some other barriers that we have. So purchasing, the hearing devices for town meeting, that could come out of that budget. So it would give us some additional money to play around with to hit some of these issues we're talking about. So.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Bill in regard to that?
I just had a question about the different agencies and reaching out to them. I didn't know if that's something that it would be helpful for us to provide you, like names and addresses, email addresses, phone numbers. I think there's a lot of different agencies that could provide that information to, but I just kind of wanted to have a better sense of kind of what the purpose was before kind of reaching out to them.
Yeah, and so we definitely need those. So one of the big things that they talk about at the disability office at the state is that you can't just come to these meetings and use this as my public outreach. We need to go to specific groups within town and reach out and see what else they need, and it's our responsibility as the disability coordinator to do that. So that would be my role, and my staff. I have support staff obviously too. So. They'd help me out with either questionnaires or, go into meetings with me to help out and go into these individual groups or locations. So, and then my goal would be to kind of bring it back to the commission and say, here's what I've heard. Give me some advice on how we would brainstorm to eliminate these. And that would be written into our transition plan. And then that turns into essentially a living document that we touch every year and look at it every year. And I'd recommend that this commission look at it at least, annually, if not biannually, as to the progress that we've made and where we're going to go. Because a lot of you folks do a lot of good work that all needs to be captured as part of this and to demonstrate. Because unfortunately, like other residents have said, even tonight, that there is a potential, for litigation against the town if we're not doing this work. And we're required to do it, and we should be doing it. And I'm definitely a proponent of it. So.
Right. Well, and I think that plan that you create will be a nice guideline, something for us to follow. So we, can prioritize and know where we are, what we've done, where we need to go.
Exactly. And the other piece too is, we need to have this transition plan in place and adopted, and it typically gets adopted by our council. That's who would adopt it. But, it also, by not having it, there's certain grants we can't go after. So that's an important piece of it. And, we've gone after some money from the state for grants to finish this that I haven't been successful the last couple of years. So unfortunately, that's not great. So That's why we're just going forward with tax money to fund this initiative.
So ideally, it would be approved at town meeting in May, and then the money would be available for you to begin the project.
Yep. So what I would do is I'd contract with 2 separate vendors. I have proposals from 2 vendors right now that, so I made sure I have enough money to do this. One that deals specifically in buildings and one that does more of the flat surface and roadway work. So we have those estimates right now. That's why we're requesting the minimum of 125. We'd like to get to 150 because that would give us a little bit of extra money to potentially hit some of the other areas aside from just buildings, sidewalks, and right of way, which I think is just as important. So.
Okay. Lorna? You're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute.
When you're talking about sidewalks, are they actually thinking of a plan of being able to access those businesses that are on the side of Main Street where Creations is and the travel place? And because you can't access their business if you have, some kind of mobility. You have a real hard time with any kind of mobility problems, especially if you're a wheelchair or something like that. So when you're talking about sidewalks, are you talking about making some kind of way for them to be able to access those buildings?
Well, the answer is yes and no. So if it's feasible for us to make that change, we would make that change and do that. A lot of issues, what you run into is that it's really infeasible to raise the road or the sidewalks. Just you don't have enough right of way, you're constrained. So if we can make it work, we do that. So we would. I look at, so we have a regulation called the Public Rights of Way Accessibility Guidelines that lay out, essentially how to do this, and then also the development of a technical and feasibility process. So we actually look at this individually. So that would come to me to review as to whether or not it's actually feasible to get into there or not. And I hate to say that money's part of it, but it is to some degree. But it's really looking at, is it, can you, if you raise the curb by a foot to get into this one building because of the step, well, now you can't get down to the street and make a crosswalk that's compliant. So, you're trying to find that balance. Unfortunately, it ends up being a balancing act. So I wouldn't say you can make it all work, but you can make whatever we can make work. If it's a step, that's usually doable. Anything above a step is usually very difficult, if not impossible.
Can't they make a little ramp or concrete?
No, because you're required by the accessibility guidelines for buildings as well as for sidewalks to meet certain grades, and the ramp has to be a certain length, and it can only be so steep, and there's so many requirements that realistically that almost becomes too difficult to manage. So a good example would be, we just went to do to the Conservation Commission on Thursday to talk about the pickleball court. And so they're doing at Bettsfield, they're going to replace the tennis court with a pickleball and tennis court combo. So we have to expand it a little bit, but we're also going to, because we're working there, we're going to pave that walkway that goes down there that turns all muddy and whatnot. So we looked at that as a definite, mobility improvement, and then looking at the grades that go there. But I can't go over 5% on that stretch. Otherwise I don't meet the ADA requirements. If I did that, then I would be in a ramp, and then I'd have to put railings on the side of this, and it turns into a whole big thing. So as you start designing these things, that's what I'm looking at all the time, is making sure that it's feasible, and how we can, accommodate it. So if it was no way for us to go less than 5%, then I would have had a railing that was installed through sections of it, and done all that stuff. So unfortunately, it's just not as easy. They really put into this. It's between 5% and 8%. Those are my tolerances, really. So, anything below 5 is considered accessible, essentially, and then anything that's 5% up to 8% is considered a ramp. It has different types of requirements, whether I'm in the rights of way or if I'm on another piece of property. And looking at the faces on this Zoom, that's a real boring conversation, I can tell.
No, it's not. It's
just
yeah, so
Yeah, it's very, and you don't think about it until you've done it and sat there, try to grade them all out and figure out how far they need to go, how difficult that becomes.
Mm.
So,
Right,
Yeah.
something that should be so easy because of the regulations turns out to be so difficult.
exactly. And obviously the other piece being the tactile plates for the low vision folks and where those have to be installed and all that. So, but that's what we're doing these days. And we're looking at that on basically any project we touch. That's a consideration that we're including, and sidewalks also, it's not even just the running slope of it, it's the cross slope. That's another piece of it that we have to look at. That has to be less than 2%. So if there's any spot where we're above that and it's steeper, like downtown, all of downtown would be a great example. Those are all non-compliant, every ramp and every sidewalk right now. So
Wow.
yeah, a lot of work, but we have that the big Envision project downtown that'll hopefully fix that in the next 5 to 7 years. But
Right. Anybody else? Comments, questions? So I'm skipping around a little bit.
Cheryl has a question.
Oh, sure, Sherry.
Hi, Marie. I was downtown the other day myself, and I parked on Avon Street near the bank. And I had, lucky I got a parking spot halfway down, but there was no access to the sidewalk because all the snow was piled up all the way down. And I had to literally walk on the street and walk back half the bank building. Not that it was a big deal to me, but the cars are zooming by me and I'm thinking, what someone, was older and could be a little wobbly, or, like myself, sometimes I get a little dizzy spell. So I was thinking that, I wonder if there's some way where they can do an opening somehow so that people don't have to walk quite so long along the street. And
yeah, I know. I mean, as being part of Public Works, I can tell you they do snow removal when we get enough of it. But this is kind of one of those in between scenarios where, it doesn't make a lot of sense to remove it. We know it's going to melt soon, but that doesn't help for the day that you're there, obviously. So.
Right. I know. It was just a thought, and I was like, geez, you could blow someone right over, but it's.
A lot of it will change with the new project too, because there's going to be bike lanes and stuff included and how all those work with it. Some of that will change on how you access, because I think we're going to have more, parallel parking as opposed to the angle parking.
That's what I was just going to say. That's going to be a little tough. Yeah. Parallel.
That'll be when you have to remove it a lot more because people won't be able to even open their doors. So I mean that happens. But.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah. And I also noticed that the benches downtown weren't, shoveled yet. They have been since, because I checked before I came here. But that's what I was thinking, what if somebody wanted to rest and sit for a minute? But it all cleared up. So hopefully winter's over.
Fingers crossed.
Trying to be positive. That's all I have. Thank you for listening.
No, thank you.
I guess underneath the agenda that we had here when we had the discussion with the transition plan, I was noticing that we also had a question as to who does the posting for the request for accommodations.
I was envisioning that it would just come from the town rather than specifically from you. But if you think it makes sense to come, from you, it could be the disability issues is, if you have any, concerns for the meeting that's coming up, please be sure to contact us at blah, 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 or contact me. Usually it should be going to me, realistically.
I think that it should be coming from the town because it should be posted like in any meeting that's being posted. My concern is that those announcements of meetings and asking for people who need accommodations, that those postings should go like good 3 weeks before the meeting so that people have time to make those requests for accommodations.
Right. And I think we talked about this a couple of meetings ago where, I think that the 3 weeks is, if it's something easy and we can accommodate it within the time frame of when we're posting, that's great. If we find out that there's a need for somebody, then the commission and whatever that agenda item should be deferred to the next meeting that and that just doesn't get opened. And that's something that can happen. And, you know, your applicant may not be excited about that, but unfortunately that's, the town's well within its rights to do that. So you know, that we have to have the ability for folks to attend if they're interested, just like Dan was talking about today.
So in other words, when they do come out with the town meetings, I guess there's one already made that's already got a date to it, that the request goes out early enough, because you can't kind of put someone off until the next town meeting, you know?
That is true. That I agree with. Yeah. So in this case, what we're looking to do is to have Jen send out a news and notice talking about, you know, if you need an accommodation for town meeting, any requests, please send it to my attention, you know, by a certain date, so that we have enough time to accommodate it. I mean, that date would obviously be very soon, because I need enough time to do the research and whatever else would have to happen.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And Bill, at our last meeting, we have voted in favor to remove the word issue in the title of the commission. So it would then now be Wakefield Commission on Disability. And it was brought to our attention that the Arts Council or the Cultural Council wants to change their name to the Arts Council, and that too is, I guess, going before town meeting. So we thought that it might make sense that we do this all together. Now, and you can answer this question. You know, if it's a big to-do to make the change, my position was we leave the name as it is, but for branding purposes, we just drop the issues when we're making up this banner that we want to do and things like that. But if it makes more sense to just do it formally, then I guess that's what we want to do.
I don't think it's a big deal, to be honest with you. I don't even know if they'd probably just put that on the consent calendar realistically. So they're starting to do now for issues that are kind of non-controversial, they just include all of them as one big article that everybody votes on at the beginning of town meeting. And you can pull things off if you don't like what it is. I can't imagine removing issues would be something that anybody would take issue with, right? I mean, I can't imagine. So
then how do we do that? How do we handle this?
So that goes to the town council they're the ones that approve the warrant. So we would need to send them any articles that we'd want to do. And the deadline for that is very soon. So I can take the lead on looking at that tomorrow morning.
Okay.
All right.
Yep, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Where is this on the agenda?
Darcy, it was on the agenda I don't know that I see it on today's agenda, but on last month, it was under update on the banner.
Right, okay.
And
That's what I
then,
Marie, I just wanted to clarify one thing. I heard you say the name changed to the Commission on Disability. I don't know if we wanted it to be disabilities or disability. I just wanted to clarify that.
Disability commission.
Disabilities.
so I'm looking at a booklet Lois and Dan gave me, 2021 Disability Resource Center Yellow Pages. And when I look at all of the other commissions in the area, it's Beverly Commission on Disabilities, Danvers Disability Commission, Lynn Disability Commission, Marblehead Disability Commission, North Reading Commission on Disabilities, Salem Commission on Disabilities, Saugus Commission on Disability, whatever we want. What's the consensus, I guess?
I think disabilities, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right, yeah.
Commission on disabilities.
Yeah,
Wakefield Commission on Disabilities.
yeah.
Disabilities.
Are we all in favor? Anybody not in favor of that?
In favor.
Okay, all right, so Darcy, we are all in favor that are present. Maeve was not here to vote, nor was Lois. So you probably should just document that, but the majority, we have a quorum, so I believe we're fine with that. Thank you, Levon, for bringing that to our attention. Okay. Last month, we also voted on a formal decision on the bylaws that we're just going to leave what's in the current documentation as written.
Okay. And that's, but just to be clear, that would be what is updated. So the commission, that section, which creates the commission, is going to be the one that's going to be edited to, change the name essentially.
Okay. But everything that's required by the state, we are by default required to do. It's just not specifically cited in the Wakefield document, but
Exactly.
okay. Okay, and so then the only other, well, not the only other, we probably should get to it, is the Intelligent Lives discussion. So we had hoped to be able to have gotten together in February to individually review the Intelligent Lives film so that we could start to plan on what we would like this panel to be. But Paula, it looks like it is just not working out in our favor.
No, I think we have to have a public meeting in order to show it. We cannot show it individually. We cannot show it without posting it. And I don't know what the posting deadline is, if it's 2 or 3 weeks, but I know I had missed it in order to have a public meeting before this meeting. So I don't know if we want to have a meeting in March and show another meeting in March that's public, that everybody's invited to. We would have to use the Communitas Zoom, just because the way that I understand it, at least, is that the movie is coming off of the server and you need to have something as close to the server as possible. Otherwise, the speech does not match up with people's lips. And so that can be really frustrating. And that's available anytime. Communitas has just increased their Zoom capacity. So, that's from that end is very possible. I think it's just finding out what works for this committee, and then kind of going forward. I had also asked the question, just because I was concerned, about kind of the larger event and if that was something that we were going to be able to do. I don't think that Attorney Mullen was thrilled with the idea, but after lots of conversation, thought that that would be okay. We just have to make sure that it's recorded, the actual event, and that it's available on the website. And through Communitas, we checked with the Intelligent Lives kind of copyright to see if we could record it. And since it is for educational purposes, kind of within the town, that's okay.
So we did get approval to do the Zoom via the other Zoom account?
Correct.
Okay, we don't have to use the town Zoom?
We don't have to use the town Zoom, but we have to post it.
Post it and record it, okay.
And record it, yep.
So it's just something that should be so simple, is just like turning into, do we even, at this point, my thought is that we wing it, that we advertise it, we just play it at one of our meetings or whatever, and a date that we decide, and then we, rather than spend all this time planning a panel, we just be the panel and we wing it. Because my concern is, if we go through all of this and nobody shows up to watch the movie, we will have spent all this time in preparation for naught.
Or I also had the question, if Paula, if you've been involved in other panels or you have access to any other activities that have occurred before with the movie, and could we just follow the same protocol or ask the same questions, or so we could use something that's already been used before and just be prepared to do that without trying to, I agree, add this additional meeting to try to create an activity. Because it's not, as we've learned, which I kind of suspected it from the last meeting, and just my experience on the school committee, I mean, there's just so many rules and so many ways because of public law, right? That you have to do things a certain way.
Right.
Like we can't just get together. You know, we can't even break off in subgroups and get together.
Right, no. And we had talked about doing a registration. I mean, do we even need to do that? Do we just advertise the date that we're going to view the film and let people zoom in? And
I don't know. I think our original intent last year was like disability awareness. And so I'm wondering if we don't just like postpone this until we can do something in person, just because I feel like that is something that's really helpful, for people with disabilities or parents with kids with disabilities to be able to connect with each other. And that's so hard to do over Zoom. But if we did something in person, then, I think that those connections might be a little bit easier. And so I just didn't know if I know we had started up like a Facebook page last week, and I am not a social media person, so don't know a ton. But, if we just wanted to do kind of some like monthly updates or like, did you know that people with disabilities can do this and can do this? And could we find some like YouTube videos of people with disabilities being really successful? Or maybe we even know of stories that, we could take advantage of. I know what kind of gave me the idea was I think it's the Wakefield Human Rights Committee has been doing like a lot of different posts for like Black History Month and Women's History Month and something on the logo. And so maybe we just use more of that platform right now where everybody can't be together. But then that seemed like a lot of work as well to kind of get all that information together.
well, the Facebook page has been created, so we would just, and I had asked Maeve if she would be willing to sort of take that over, and so what we could do was we each could feed her information that we come across, and then she could actually do the posting to the Facebook page. It's, we would want to, well, if each one of us has a Facebook page, then I guess you could have, you could share it that way in order to get the, and maybe we could link our Facebook page to our website. Hi, Levon, you have a.
I'm just putting out a suggestion to think about. October is Disability Awareness Month.
Okay.
And I wonder if, maybe October, people would be able to gather. I really like what Paula had said about families with children with disabilities or adult children with disabilities being able to connect with each other. It is really important. And I know a lot of people on this commission have the same experience as me. And, it can sometimes be very isolating to be, in your situation. And so I really think that having a live event would be very meaningful to the community. And I think that we might be missing out on something if we rush to just do it.
Yeah. I'm beginning to agree with you because
am
we
too.
really were looking forward to doing this live and we were like also close to ready to go with it. And
Well, maybe we could combine the thing. Maybe we could create more of a virtual social platform awareness plan where every month we do something, even through the summer, right? That brings awareness to the community through all the avenues that are available to us. And then like in anticipation of like the October showing of the movie, and that'd be like the, you know,
the culmination.
yeah, the culmination of it kind of thing.
And I could see there's a couple of things I've been thinking about as ways to kind of maybe build a group of people that would like to see it, is that we could reach out to the special education department and see if the CPAC wants to join in and have advertise it for families that way. Or we could invite members of other disability commissions in the area from Stoneham or Melrose and see if they want to join us and kind of host them. And it might be a nice networking event as well.
Right, which was the path we had been traveling.
Yeah.
Really,
Right.
that was the path we had been traveling. And
Consider creating a Facebook group for this, so this way people sign up essentially, right? And then, I mean, there's just like the family pages that you have in town, right? I mean, we have one in the town I'm in. There's a handful of them. It may
right,
make
well, so
sense to
that's
just-
what we had done too. We had somebody create the Facebook page for us, and we had been starting to advertise this. You know, we had secured the Savings Bank Theater, which was where we were going to present it. We had our date. I mean, we were really close to getting ready to go. And then, yeah, I think we were going to do it in April, right? And then March we shut down. And a big part of this was to get the town to become aware of this commission, because we, know that they're not. And we thought by hosting a live event and really advertising it, that would kick it off. But so, what are people's thoughts then about postponing it until next year, the actual showing of the film? Lorna?
As much as I hate to postpone it, I think that I'm in favor of postponing it because I'd really like to do a live thing. Because I just feel that the human connection is there when we can do it in live. And we can, maybe have a panel. I think that people don't, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I mean, to watch something all the time educational over Zoom would drive me a little nuts. But to be able to be there and with other people watching the movie and just being able to see people's reactions and thoughts and words and everything else, just, I think for me, it has a bigger impact.
Right.
And this really is a good movie. Now it's been probably a couple of years since I've seen it, but I remember that at the time I thought it was very good and was, I think I saw it shortly after coming on board with the commission. So that's been about 2 years. So it was about 2 years ago that I saw it. And it's a good movie.
So then do we want to go ahead and watch it at one of our meetings? Not like we have a crowd of people here. I mean, we could, if we want to do that at one of our meetings before the end of the year, that would allow us all to see it and begin to plan for this live session. Or are we spoiling it if other people potentially join, if they get wind of it?
I
I
don't
don't
think
know,
we're
we don't-
spoiling it.
I know.
I think, you're not going to get 100 people, I don't think,
No,
coming
either.
onto our meeting to watch the film. I mean, because I think if we present it, I mean, obviously you have to put it in there and welcome them. But if we put it in there and say, we are going, to have a live viewing and panel, in the coming months, please stay tuned. And that way they'll know they're going to have an opportunity to watch it, which might be, I think, a good way to advertise it.
Okay, so let's take a vote for a postponement of this until the fall. All in favor? All right, okay, so we're all in favor, and note that Lois and Maeve are not here, but we'll advise them of that. Okay, so the only other item I wanted to mention was on, I think it's Thursday, right, is the 4th, is the First Vision 2030.
Mhm.
That's Thursday. I just, this kind of fascinates me as a community vision for planning initiative where the community can imagine the future. I think I'll be so curious to hear what people have to say. And I think this is a good opportunity for us to throw out, you know, some of the ideas that we have for the disability community here in Wakefield.
Yeah, it's a disability summit online, and it goes from 9 to 1.
No, the disability summit is, yes, during the day, but what I'm talking about is what Wakefield is hosting on Thursday night at 7 p.m. I probably go 7 p.m. to 9, which is a community visioning for planning initiative where the community can imagine the future and think about how we can shape the different parts of town with the different sets of ideas. And this will be the first public meeting to, I don't know, Bill, do you have any other, do you know much more about it than what I've read in the paper?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, this is done pretty much, most communities do this. It's kind of a 10-year cycle, essentially. And really what it ends up being is it's kind of the policy guide for staff. So we know what to be looking at and what the community wants to see. And so I would say it's very important for sure. You know, for your own concerns, and then as the commission's concerns. I mean, I think a lot of our stuff or many of the issues that you're talking about will hopefully be addressed through some of the initiatives we're doing and the transition plan
Right.
stuff. But ultimately, it's still a great opportunity to have at least the same sets of thoughts to be included within the townwide vision. I think it makes a ton of sense. So, you know, typically what happens is they will go board by board to get perspective too. That's something that does typically happen. This is more of a kickoff to talk about the process. I would expect there'll be a few design charrette things that they'll do where they ask everybody to come and take a look at certain things and, pretend that you were going to wipe out half the town and what would you put right here? That type of stuff. So they really try to take it from a big picture and then kind of bring it down to small actionable items or, themes, thoughts, that type of stuff.
Okay, and there's, I mean, this is vision, so that you can throw things out, like a lot that I've been reading on the listserv that I belong to are changes in the zoning so that individuals like myself can build a little, I
In-law
forget,
apartment?
Pardon me?
Like an in-law apartment or
Right, some
other.
kind of a little thing onto my home for where my son could, live independently. And, obviously Wakefield, we don't have the land that a lot of other communities do, but, we have
and then
that.
they'll look at like mixed in areas that you'd
Yep.
want to look at for targeting, redevelopment. That's kind of the idea, the biking plan that we're looking at for the town, like that type of stuff too. And then just, enhancing walkability around town. That's another piece that's usually
Right.
a big one. So, and then they'll also be doing, surveys and stuff to go with it. So it's a pretty big initiative. This isn't a quick little, hey, if you missed this meeting, you've missed the boat. That's not even close. This will be probably the first kickoff, to be honest with you. So you'll have many opportunities to weigh in for sure.
But nice opportunity to get a bee in somebody's bonnet, right? To throw it out there and have somebody hear it, because sometimes these things, you got to hear it a lot before any change gets made.
I don't
And
know
you've
about
got
a
to
bee.
rally the troops.
That's true. That's very true. But yes, I think it's great. I think it's another opportunity for you to get the word out about the commission too. Like like we're talking about today.
Yeah.
So myself, I'll be there for probably about the first half hour, and then I have another presentation that I have to go do. So I'll be sneaking away to go do that. But
There you go.
yeah.
All right. Well, I'm just throwing that out. I saw it in the paper. If people are interested and they have, something you want to comment on, don't feel obligated in any way, but just, be aware. And if there are things you want to bring up, I think that's the forum to do it.
Definitely. You had sent me an email as well about that application I sent in. Before I left work today, I heard that we did receive a $122,000 grant
Wow.
for ADA enhancements over by Post Academy, and we're going to be doing all that. So that's some good news. Accessible pedestrian signals. So we're going to be adding in updated, push buttons and all that stuff. So it'll meet all the requirements. And we have some curb ramp work and a bunch of other stuff out there too. So that's some good news that we just got.
That is awesome news. Can you share the grant so that we can see exactly what you got, what the award was for?
Sure, yeah. A lot of it's sidewalk work, and then kind of improving the crosswalks and stuff in the area. That's the gist of it. But I'll send it to you tomorrow for sure.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have anything else? No? Okay, then if not, does someone want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Before we adjourn, just to maybe get the cobwebs out of my head, did we decide that we're going to watch the Intelligent Lies as a group during after one of our meetings? Is that what we're going to do? And
Is that
will
the
it be
consensus with folks that we would?
will it be
we'll
next
watch
month?
it?
You think next month? Because right now it doesn't look like we'll have a huge agenda next month. So, well, hopefully. So
Are
we
all
might
in
be able to.
favor of that, watching it next month?
Mhm.
Paula, your
Yeah.
thoughts? Are you
Yeah,
okay with
that
that?
sounds good. I think we
Yeah,
have to
the
do
only
that.
agenda items I foresee is we certainly have to stay on top of this town meeting accommodations. Because
Yes,
to me, this is one of the most direct, or at least things brought to our committee that we can actually really act
Right.
upon, and is certainly under, that's what this is all about, right?
Right,
And the
right.
fact that he's requested these things and this hasn't happened, if we can't fix it, then who can? Right, in the town, right? Since that's our
right. Well,
charge.
it's a big issue. I mean, we've addressed some issues
Yeah.
like parking and things like that, but this is something that, that
Well, it's
affects
so
a lot
doable.
more
I
people.
never, for example, the clear shield, that's what we do in schools for teachers that are teaching kids how to read, because you have to be able to see the teacher's mouth when they're forming the words. So that was a
Right.
simple thing we figured out last year or during all this, that they can't wear cloth masks, or, that they need the clear shields, some of these things are so simple to fix.
Let me give you a little bit of feedback though too on these clear masks, because my interpreter friends had started using them too, and the problem is that they'll also tend to fog up so that you don't
Yeah.
see.
Oh, yeah,
the
I mean the
mouth.
shield. The big shield is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
The teachers, at least in the lower grades, I don't, they wear them, so that there's
They're
nothing,
wearing a shield versus a mask. And what in the email that,
their faces can be seen completely. Yeah.
right, and Bill's email with the town, Steve Mayo is also saying if we can be far enough away, then the presenters or the speakers don't need to wear any mask. If the public is far enough away, then no one, the speakers wouldn't need to wear a mask.
Yeah, we just
Which
figure out.
would probably
Wait,
be
no, my-
better, because if you're then filming that person and they don't have a mask on, who's ever watching on the TV
Yeah.
would be able to see it more
Exactly.
clearly.
So but that's the only agenda item that I think is
Yeah.
a major one for next month is that. But if Bill, you're already handling it and we know it's going to be handled, just that we have an update about it and then. yeah,
Right,
I think we can watch
let's
the
do
movie.
that, have a
Yeah.
follow-up.
Right.
I think it's going to make us feel better to watch the movie next month too, because nothing like talking about this for a whole year,
I
right?
know,
Right.
I know, at least be able to
And now
finally
here we
get
go
to see
again,
it.
which I do agree we should postpone. It's gonna be better in person, but at least we'll feel like we accomplished something with it, you know?
Right.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
All right, so the two agenda items next week will be a follow-up with Bill on how things are progressing with town meeting for the accommodations, and we will watch Intelligent Lives.
Sounds good.
If something else comes up, during the month, then we'll figure out what to do at that point.
And should I send out, this is like a really concrete, direct question about the Zoom link. So since it can't be the town Zoom link, should I send it out like tomorrow so that Sherry has it for whenever she needs to post it? Or
What is the reason why it can't be the town Zoom link again? So if you have a DVD of this, do you have one?
no, it's on like the server, it's on like the agency server.
Paula works for an agency that has a license to be able to show this film. And what
Okay.
she's
Okay.
being told is that how would you show it any other way than directly through yours? You'd have to
Well,
like
like if
put it on your laptop and then I
the
don't even know
screen.
how we
Yeah.
would do that.
I would just do,
if
you
you
would just make me like a
screen.
co-host and then I would share screen. But
Okay.
my understanding is that this
Sure.
doesn't make sense to me, but if there's too much lag time, if we were to use the town's Zoom account, then there would be too much lag time versus
sense.
having the Zoom account and the movie coming from the same place.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, so Sherry would just need to know that, would we still be able to have a meeting on that other website?
Yes, because it would still be recorded and then available afterwards on the town website.
Yeah, so then all you gotta do is just give her the link by the
Okay.
time that you send out the.
I'll just do it tomorrow, just because I don't know
Right.
how many days in advance and.
Yes,
details are
just
not my gift.
create the meeting and then she doesn't have to send it out to anybody tomorrow. Maybe
Right.
we just have her hold until we get we wait a couple of weeks, see if we have any other agenda items that we're gonna have to add, and then, Lorna can send her the typical agenda and then Sherry can just add the meeting information you've provided her onto that when we post it. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Nope. Okay, does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn the meeting? Adjourn the meeting.
I
I'll
make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And I'll second it.
Okay.
All right, thank you all for joining. Have a good month
Yep.
and we'll be in touch.